these events, and some of you I've met before. Some of you I saw last week at the rally downtown against Commissioner Wiener's email. We've seen you at some of our other events that have gone on. But I want to I asked to show up and to get just a minute on the agenda to introduce myself to everybody who might not have met yet or who haven't made a decision about who they might support as sheriff. I'm Pat Davis, and I'm running for sheriff because Bernalillo County deserves the right sheriff that we need for right now. I think everybody in this room probably already has an assumption about where we are, where we came from as a sheriff's department and law enforcement in Bernalillo County over the last, what now, say 8 years. Certainly, any approach that I'm going to take as a progressive candidate for sheriff is going to be 180 degrees from, in a lot of positions, from the ones that we've had before. You know, my background is one that's a little unique and different from any other candidate that's running. I currently, for some of you who know, I currently am at the district attorney's office, where I'm the public information officer. Some people have seen us on TV or doing work in the courts or in the community events and in our community and neighborhood associations, trying to build neighborhood and community support, using that grassroots model, trying to get neighborhood and community support behind initiatives to go after our methamphetamine offenders, the repeat offenders that you now see the city focusing on. We did a news conference with the mayor on a few weeks ago about our combined efforts to try to keep those folks in jail and working with corrections to be sure that offenders are being held accountable the right way. What I learned from this experience is that my background from the University of New Mexico Police Department, where I got to go to the FBI National Academy and learn community policing from people all across the world, literally, and from Washington, D.C., where I worked with U.S. Capitol Police and Metropolitan Police, was that we need a perspective in Bernalillo County that sees law enforcement not just as the bad guys who show up, kick down doors, take names, throw everybody in jail, and toss away the key. And really, that's been our model for a while, and it hasn't worked. Quite frankly, you know, I love being here. My partner and I chose to come here several years ago because we love New Mexico. But one of the things that we first realized is there's a big market for us as cops to be here. So our crime rates, for instance, are higher than they should be per capita for this type of community. Though we're close to the border, our crime rates are 92% higher when it comes to violent crimes than El Paso, who has a border war 10 yards across the border. Our property crime offenders, as much as the city is focusing on property crimes, there are 151, as of last week, 151,000 open felony warrants in Bernalillo County. Those are warrants for felony offenders who have committed crimes, have been charged, that the grand jury of community people or a judge has found have committed a crime, or at least there's probable cause they need to go to jail, be in custody, go before the court and answer for those charges. 151,000 individual warrants. That's 1 in 4 citizens in Bernalillo County. So look around you. Somebody in your row might be a felon. That tells me, as a cop and as somebody who works in the system, that we need a new focus on being sure that we understand that we're putting our law enforcement resources where they can make the most difference. Currently, there are 4 deputies in the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department responsible for warrant enforcement full-time, out of 275 on the street. That tells me that there's a focus difference that we can fix. It means that we need to do more to empower. And some of you know the old Obama campaign that they adopted, slogan they adopted from other places. And you see it on some of the literature that we passed around. Respect, empower, and include. We want to be sure that law enforcement is about respecting the people that we serve. It means that we understand the differences between different communities and different people, different neighborhoods, different heritages and cultures, and that our deputies understand how different people will receive the way we approach law enforcement and approach them to solve their problems. It simply means that a model that works very well, for instance, right here in this neighborhood, may not translate well into some communities that are primarily undocumented communities in the South Valley, and yet we still serve them and have an obligation to do that. That's respect. We talk about empowering our neighborhoods, and that means that from a law enforcement perspective, we can do more to get involved with the neighborhoods and say, we want to help you solve your problems. I just left the North Valley Neighborhood Association meeting a few minutes ago, and that's in the city. The very first thing that they talked about tonight was they wanted to know, young lady stands up, who's in college, the young lady stood up and said, my neighbor's house was broken into last week. I'm now scared, and it was after dark. She comes home, she commutes on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and she said, I'm scared now to go home after dark because nobody yet will tell me what happened with that burglary. I don't know who to call to ask about my neighbor's burglary, and it's because it's it's an abandoned house, it's been foreclosed on. And so all she knows is the police were there were lights and sirens and cars, and now she's afraid to go home. She needs to know what neighborhood resources, we need to have a connection with our neighborhood so that she knows who to call to ask that question, and how we get that information out to the neighborhood that there was a burglary in your neighborhood. If you saw something weird at 7 o'clock on Friday night, or a car that you don't recognize, please call us and let us know about that. That's a very simple solution. It's an email list that you guys know from grassroots organizing and these types of work. It's a very simple protocol of just sharing information about who to call and who to talk to. And as a sheriff, we can serve everybody in the county that way by setting up systems that, say, Albuquerque Police Department can buy into, so that everyone in the county has a single place to go. And that's the responsibility of a sheriff who serves everyone who elects him or her in the county. Finally, we talk about including everyone in the process. And that means, quite frankly, it gets back to our diverse communities. It means that we're going to get back to being sure that everyone has a voice. It means that our business community, for instance, I went to Los Ranchos this morning, spoke with some business leaders at a forum that they were having about economic development, and one of their concerns, right, and rightly so, is that they are seeing a rise in white-collar theft, people that are taking advantage of writing bad checks, coming in and committing credit card theft and fraud. And small business, Walmart can absorb that loss a lot better than your small business can do it. And so $100 to a small business owner on the south end of 4th Street in Los Ranchos can mean the difference between making payroll this week and not making payroll. Walmart can absorb that difference. And we're not saying we should push the bad guys to Walmart. But what it means is the good programs we have that work at Walmart, where Walmart, Home Depot, the DA's office, and the police are all sharing information from security cameras about people that are passing bad checks, our small business owners should be able to buy into that system too, for free. And they should be able to log in and see who this week has been identified as passing bad checks. So when they see them come in their store, they are aware and they're not giving away their shop to these folks. It's also about opening up doors to neighborhoods and communities that are afraid currently to step forward. I know you have some questions about immigration, so I don't want to go that far, and I want to give you a chance to ask your question, and let's get into it in just a second. But it means, for instance, that for our undocumented communities, you can see in the last mayor's race bill, it made such a difference that they made immigration reform and immigration enforcement and sanctuary city issues a big deal. It meant that there is a big difference between the way the Albuquerque Police Department and the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department currently approach immigration. It means that in the county, under current policy, a sheriff's deputy can stop someone if they believe, for no other reason than if they believe that they are an illegal immigrant. That, quite frankly, is legal in New Mexico currently. Arguably questionable under federal law, but more importantly, it creates a situation where people in a community, whether they are undocumented or current citizens of the United States, are afraid to encounter and talk to law enforcement because they either have a victim or a witness. At the DA's office, I know, for instance, that we see that witnesses and victims from particular communities are afraid to come forward because they are afraid that if they walk into the courthouse to testify, that they may not walk out of the courthouse after they've done what we've asked them to do. We can do something better. There's a difference between taking a dad who's taking his children to school and he's running late, he's running through a stop sign, or he's running a speed limit, he's going over the speed limit, and we're stopping him for a traffic violation. To me, that type of crime doesn't rise to the level to deserve to be held for ICE investigation and to be deported if you're undocumented, because now your family's left without a breadwinner, and now that family is left to be a victim of gangs and violence that they can't report and ask for help. To me, the cost of deporting a single person for a technical, small misdemeanor violation that most of us would pay $69 for and move on with their lives doesn't make sense. So those are the ideas that we're talking about. There are a lot of others. And so I want to give us a chance to talk more about that than I do the me just yap all day long because everybody's bored. Yes, ma'am.